Merrick, the third race out of 10 race series, and I'd like to be able to start off with the ACC, your overall winner, 155 points. She's currently riding for Miami Knights. Please welcome.
All right, we're here at Tulsa Tough 2023. How's the weather treating you?
It's spicy.
This is the number one thing. This is our number one goal, and we build up to this event.
We're here Friday night at Blue Dome.
Can't see me.
We come in really motivated for Tulsa. We have these special jerseys, so I think we stand out even a little bit more.
We have a few key events this year where we'll be hosting rides and Q&As. Feeling pretty good. Excited to race Tulsa.
And do they have any idea what they're getting themselves into here at St. Francis Tulsa Tough?
We tried to warn them. I mean, I think they just have to experience it.
Good evening and welcome to St. Francis Tulsa Tough. Tonight is Friday night and it is Blue Dome here in downtown Tulsa. I'm Gabe Lloyd. I'm joined by Daniel Holloway, multiple time winner of these races. Daniel, it is a hot, spicy night here in downtown Tulsa. The energy is hot. Tell us a little bit about what it means to race in front of these crowds.
Yeah, we just got done with the Cat 1 race, and the energy is just building and building and building. And, you know, it's really hot out here, but we got some clouds coming in. Touch and go with weather, maybe, you know, just keep it closed, kind of ward that off. But as the temperature is going to drop a little bit, it's going to give women perfect temperature to, like, really race.
Tonight is the first night we have our American Crit Cup standings, and we're going to bring those standings to you guys right now. This is our women's professional race, American Crit Cup standings. Leading off with 155 points is Andrea Sear from Miami Knights. In second, with a big gap, Alexis Ryan with 100 points for Legion of Los Angeles. And we have Lisa Salazar, also known as Yareli Salazar, with 100 points as well. Daniel, do you think those points are going to get tighter tonight?
Of course, and Andrea's got herself in a pickle. She's got a big gap, but she's got three of the same teammates behind her. That's three cards they can play, you know, and put the Miami Knights on the back foot. You know, who are they going to chase? Who are they going to look for? So it's going to be really dynamic racing.
The dynamic racing will continue throughout the night because this course is amazing. It is really hard. We made a few subtle changes, I think, this year, where we have 8 turns as we roll through. But Daniel, the biggest change, I think, for you, a little bit more extension of the course.
Yeah, down between 3 and 4, 5, 6, they added a block to the race. So that backstretch is significantly longer than it was previous years. So during the lead out, previously you were kind of able to pedal coast, pedal coast, pedal coast to get to the final backstretch. Now you don't have that respite in a very key spot of the lead out. So if teams haven't focused on that, put it towards a really solid plan, we might see some people caught out.
We're going to go back to our call-ups here right now. We're going to get this racing underway here tonight in front of the very excited crowd here in downtown Tulsa, Oklahoma. Again, this is Blue Dome, the McNelly's Group Blue Dome race, the very first night of our racing here in downtown Oklahoma. Daniel, talk to us a little bit about how important these starts are for these races.
Yeah, and a course like this is Friday night, like we said, the energy is pumped up. Being on front row just has a little bit more relaxation. You get to go through the first few corners uninterrupted. You get to kind of breathe, see the course at speed for the first time, and not be jostling for position. You can take that 1 or 2 laps, be there, and then start, you know, some of the sprinters float back 20, 30 wheels, get comfortable. You know, it is a smaller women's field, so 30 might be a little too far back, but you can go back 15, 20 wheels, get comfortable, start reading the race and making decisions.
All right, looks like our call-ups are beginning here, and it looks like Skylar Schneider from Legion of Los Angeles is here, and she is going to be our number 1 rider here. She was our winner here previously, I believe, last season, so welcome back, Skylar, to the race. Looks like we are all queued up, in fact, and ready to go. This is going to be the beginning of our Friday night racing here in downtown Tulsa, Oklahoma. Racing is about to kick off, Daniel. What are the nerves like? What is it like to be on the start line here in Tulsa?
Yeah, this is the race that always gave me butterflies, and that's, you know, no matter how many times you've done it, no matter what level you've been at, you get butterflies at Tulsa Tough.
Yeah, the top 10 call-ups tonight, just in case we didn't see them, it was Andrea Sear, Alexis Ryan, Yareli Salazar, Kimberly Lucy, Erica Zavetta, Alexi Ramirez, Olivia Cummins, Kendall Ryan, Sam Schneider, and Skylar Schneider. Daniel, we are now underway. We are racing here in downtown Oklahoma, and here they come right by us. What is the energy going to be, and more importantly, what do you think team tactics will be as we watch these first few laps unfold?
Yeah, I think everybody's going to take the first few laps to fill each other out. You know, some teams, they want to play their car early. We're going to see it in the first couple laps. If we're going to look for a team that wants to play late, we're just going to see them very passive, only chase the important stuff and look to just stay in the draft and save energy.
Yeah, I think that we also heard a lot of discussion throughout the field last night at the Thursday night group ride with the pros. It was a great opportunity for us to get to meet and greet some of the riders and discuss what the strategies will be. And a lot of eyes are on Legion right now with those new bright blue kits. Everybody views them as the team to watch and beat. Their strategy thus far throughout the season, what has that been like?
Yeah, I don't think they've had the season opener. We're accustomed to seeing them just dominating from season opener until this point. You know, they've got beaten at Joe Martin, they've gotten beaten at Redlands, they've gotten beaten at Air Force, you know, and we were informed that they didn't have their full team there, all 6, you know, of their riders. So this is going to be their first race of the season with all 6, you know, ready to go. So if teams don't put that in their checklist to say, hey, they have 6 now, they may, you know, find themselves in a pickle. But if so we're going to see how they do. And now that, you know, we see them lined up at the front and just kind of they're setting the tone.
Yeah, and some of the teams that were beating them earlier on DNA came to the front and had some very successful rides. Denver Disruptors also had some very successful rides there throughout the time. So we're going to be looking to see if those teams can continue to ride really well. As we have Legion setting the tempo at the front for this opening lap of the night.
Yeah, I think they're just riding the front, you know, getting themselves together, feeling the course out. And, you know, when they ride like this, it's kind of telling the other teams, it's, you know, it's in your court. We're lined up. This is what we're going to do. Now what's your move? And so, you know, at the current pace, you know, Legion could be here comfortably kind of all night. Now it's the other teams to start testing the Legion train, see how they're going to react to 1-person, 3-person, 5-person moves. So I think we're going to just see some slow chess right now playing.
A little bit of wind and weather. We'll get into, I mean, it's about 90-some degrees here in Tulsa. Not the hottest Tulsa Tough that we've ever experienced here, but we do have a little bit of breeze occurring. And with the architecture on the downtown circuit, how does that sort of affect the early dynamics of this field?
Yeah, so we're going to have headwind home stretch, tailwind between 3 and 4, and then headwind or tailwinds going into the final. So that helps the lead out. You know, keep the pace high, hard to come around, but you also be really mindful you can't start your sprint too early in a headwind.
Looks like a high of 93 today. So, you know, we've seen much hotter temperatures in the past. In fact, we have seen some of these riders end up over at with heat exhaustion in the fact. And so that will not happen this year. It's relatively mild temperatures here in Tulsa this evening. Kendall Ryan now coming to the front for the field. We're keeping an eye on the rest of the field, though, as well, as we look to see those pink jerseys of DNA Pro Cycling come to the front. And I expect that we'll see the Denver Disruptors also moving themselves up towards the front to try to shake things up. I see some Austin Aviator jerseys also in the mix.
Yeah, and as this race progresses, we're just going to see, you know, the temperature's going to cool off. The riders are going to feel that. And, you know, hopefully they just kind of get going. But we can definitely see that everybody's kind of taking their time to feel each other out before we see some aggressive racing.
Ureli Salazar on the front right now. She is the 2021 Mexican Road Race National Champion. She also won most recently at the Sunny King Criterium, becoming the Queen of the Night, in fact, down there. So Ureli, a very talented rider. She's also represented Mexico in the Olympics on the velodrome. She's won herself some medals at World Cups as well. So very talented, explosive sprinter, the Ureli Salazar. But we believe that Legion is probably going to be riding for Kendall or Skylar again this evening.
That's the easy assumption to make, that Kendall wearing the Stars and Stripes is their go-to, and Skylar is right there alongside. But all the girls are really, really dangerous. You know, you're not going to want to let Sam Schneider up the road with 1 or 2 girls or even by herself. She could easily, you know, ride away solo if you're trying to bluff them out. this particular squad of Legion is very deep and very versatile in what they can do. So, the rest of the field is really going to have to start testing this Legion train and tactic if they're going to expect a different outcome than, this pace and then a really fast lead out towards the end.
We'll be waiting to see when some of these teams are also going to start to come to the front. I mean, this is another American Criterium Cup event where points will be on the line. We're going to have an intermediate sprint at some point coming up and around, and that intermediate sprint, I think, will start to play some factors here. I'm not sure if Legion of Los Angeles necessarily super focused on those American Criterium Cup points as much as the other teams are in this race.
Yeah, typically, Legion has always taken kind of a bigger picture when they go to race tactics. It's not very much in the moment thinking about, hey, we need this 5 points and this 5 points, this 5 points. They think, long, big picture race tactics to kind of just execute the greater plan. And, more often than not, it kind of falls into their overall plan of success.
Really looking forward to what our strategy plays out. Now, Legion has been showing nice rotation at the front. This is the second time we've seen Skylar come around to the front and start to set tempo. Sam has not necessarily done a lot. Here she comes, though. And look at this. We maybe see Emily Flynn of LA Sweat coming up and around. Emily's role for LA Sweat a little bit different than some of the other riders. Emily's role is team captain. She was second at Tour of Somerville just a few weeks ago, but now we see DNA coming up to the front. Who do we think this is? Could be Rachel, potentially.
Yeah, it's hard to tell at this point.
It does look like Rachel Langdon's style there. A little bit of elbows out, a little bit of aggressive style, head tucked down. That's generally some of her style, but we will get some confirmation there once we get those race numbers.
And this is where the other teams have to be very mindful. It's one rider up the road, and if Legion, is the 800-pound gorilla, let them do the work. Don't do these small chases for them. Force them to expend the effort, and when it's back together, use that effort to throw a counterattack.
That is Rachel Langdon right now off the front. Rachel, always traditionally very aggressive. Now we see Yareli Salazar from the field actually jump out, and looks like she is viewing, because we didn't see that with the foreshortening of the lens there on the back straight. We didn't see what the gap became for Rachel, but it looked like it was significant enough. Yareli's reaction to it, now we have this nice drone shot to show us what that gap became. And you see at the back of the field here, Daniel, a little bit, no real panic from what I can tell.
Yeah, the pace isn't fully extended. Riders are 2-3 wide, but we can feel it's starting to get stretched out there.
And it looks like we're all back together. Yareli's effort. I thought that would be the sort of the role of our ride. Looks like the green jersey for the sprint leader for the ACC is coming to the front as well. That would be Kimberly Lucy, I believe, for DNA this season. And Rachel Langdon right on the wheel. And now it looks like we got some of the Miami Knights infiltrating into the front of the mix. But Legion not really looking panicked. InstaFund also getting themselves onto the front. So you're around 4 wide as we come through turn number 2, or
yep.
Excuse me, 3.
Big acceleration, very fast, lap and a half, and this is the, counteraction of that really injection of pace. To slow down, it swells up, and there's a shuffling. So, the riders that want to stay towards the front, they have to be very mindful of that swarm and get ahead of that, so they don't get swarmed and caught out.
Anna Hicks here from one of our local riders with the Synestia cycling program. She's out of Indiana. She's now in the pit. Riders again are allowed to take a free lap in the pit. They are getting some surfer service, looks like from one of their team directors, in fact, at this point.
She's doing a good job staying calm there, but she, in this weather, having a sip of water, it's very, very heads up to just pass the bike off, let that person handle it. Don't get involved, get your composure. It's very stressful to have a mechanical in that moment. But have a sip of water, take a deep breath, and when the bike's ready, the mechanic's going to pass it back off so you can get back in the race.
Field looking very comfortable at the moment. Very, not necessarily complacent, but riders are definitely having sort of sussing out the first 10 minutes of our race program here. Really loving these drone shots, but now we're at the front looking at this. Looking at a nice aggressive move here by our riders, and I believe that might have been some type of cream or some sort.
Or the start-finish is a good place to launch an attack. It's uphill. If you go at it with momentum from a few wheels back and carry that over to people in the front, it's a very good spot to get a gap. And Skylar knows that all too much with the amount of laps she's put in here on this race course.
As we see here, actually, as the riders come by us, there is a small group off the back of this field. So the acceleration there by Skylar, not only drawing out some of the riders at the front of the field, but also splitting some riders off the back, looking like we have ourselves 4 riders. They're going to be some of our key players. Holly Breck of DNA getting herself there in second wheel. It looks like Andrea may potentially be teen and Yoreli Salazar.
2 Legion riders, Holly Breck, and I believe Miami Knights rider here. So
Andrea Bettine, I believe, if I can identify her, and Yoreli. So 2 Legions, as we just said.
Yeah, so this is a situation where 2 Region riders, DNA and Miami Knights are not, are just going to rotate through. They don't need to inject a ton of pace, with these odds. So Holly Breck just kind of needs to go keep the pace up and be communicating, hey, send some help, send some help. Keep that gap, but ask for a teammate to come up there and better their odds there. And now we can see DNA just at the front, kind of controlling the pace. Daphne's there, keeping check on everything.
Looks like DNA coming to the front, and they maybe don't like the makeup of that move, even with one of their teammates, Holly Breck, into the split there. So DNA patrolling the front, trying to do what they can. And I'm hearing some ACC points, Daniel.
Yeah, so this could be dynamic. See who from the peloton is going to be interested in these, or just the 4 up the road don't matter that much, and they're just going to absorb them. So we're going to see it play over this lap.
There's your group of 4 as they come by us. Bettine, Salazar, Breck, and there it is, actually Stephanie Holomak of the United Racing Program coming through. Stephanie Holomak winning at the Easton Twilight Crit a few weeks ago with a very explosive sprint. She has a lot of potential. She's been guest riding for a number of teams this season. That is the rider with the pink shoulders bringing this all back together. Unfortunately, she may be bringing a lot of sprinters with her to the line.
Yeah, you've got to be very mindful of these small efforts, because in this temperature, just those 5-6 second efforts can add up over the race of an hour. And so as a sprinter, you think, oh, this is not too hard, and this is not too hard. When come the last 2 laps, all of a sudden you need that big explosive power. It's not there. You have to have some reflection on why it may not be. So you got to be really mindful. Even as the sun's going way behind some clouds, the temperature's still up, and
That's
all
right.
those things can be, depleting.
Yeah, it can be a little tricky sometimes with the race dynamics. Sometimes where there have been a few accelerations off the front, but so a lot of riders feel like they have the potential to maybe do something here, and unfortunately they may be burning their own matches before we actually get to the finish where it actually counts.
Very much so. Yeah, when it's hot, it's almost a 2 to 1. One effort is basically 2 in normal conditions.
Let's see what the field is. Little nice pear shape here as we have a few riders. Still looks like the dynamic at the back is such that there's really no panic. You see some of the LA Sweat riders back there, which means that they are going to be riding really well. And looking at the front, we have DNA one more time, mixing in with some Legion of Los Angeles. So DNA and Legion seem to be the 2 teams that are really being the animators this evening.
Yeah, they're very much probably the 2 teams that have ridden the most together as units, most amount of race days. Miami Knights, Denver Disruptors are new teams, right? New mix-up, composition of riders. So even though it's June, they've had race days, there's so much subtlety to figure out. So we can really see that DNA and Legion have the most experience together as teams to have plans and start to execute. So we're going to see them together, a lot in the race, be in the same place at the same time.
Kimberly Lucy, Olivia Cummings, and one of our riders for the Butcher Box, Mackenzie Alt, up and near the front right now, and behind them we'll have the Legion of Los Angeles racers. And again, we're all back together. So this is sort of what was forecast for the dynamic when we were talking to the riders at the Ride with the Pros event last night, whereby Legion wants to keep a field sprint. Legion wants this to come down to, they just want to burn laps. They're going to be content to let other people take some flyers and set some tempo, because all they're doing is whittling it down for them to get to the finishing kick.
I don't necessarily think that Legion wants a field sprint.
Oh.
They're okay with a field sprint. If that's how the peloton wants to race, so be it. If the other teams want to be aggressive, Legion will match that and make decisions on the course on how much they put in or don't put in to that scenario. So if everybody kind of wants to be complacent, not race super aggressive, Legion puts go, okay, fine, you guys, we're totally okay with that. You know, they don't need to force it in that direction by any means, but you know, they'll match anybody that wants to be aggressive. So in my opinion, right now with the other teams not being that aggressive, you're just slowly ticking the cards, you know, into, you know, Legion's bread and butter.
Okay. Well, that was Taylor Cook-White. She's a rider for Miami Knights, a very accomplished athlete who has raced professionally on the road and on cyclocross as well. Now we see Daphne Karagianis for DNA coming to the front. Daphne, 7th-year pro, former Midwest Road champion, 2nd year for the DNA cycling. Now she's an all-arounder. Her role in this point in the race, I think, is to just try to accelerate, maybe see who's going to suss it out, but I'm seeing a little bit of casual counters.
Yeah, the counterattacks need to be more proactive and much more quicker than waiting for Daphne to get third wheel and then counterattack. You almost have to be like, if she's within 2 bike lengths, that's when you start your counter movement. It's got to be, her teammates have to be right there to make the decision, or you're really hoping that the other teams are seeing that tactic start to play out and encourage, hey, you know, it's not allowed, but we can be 18 versus 6. You know, if we all kind of build on this common ground that we'd like a move to go up the road and force Legion to expend more energy than just kind of be in the float wheels or pick the pace they want to ride.
Claire Windsor there on the front at the moment. An interesting opportunity for her to get a little bit of air time and just set the tempo. And now looks like a CCV rider. And generally that program is based out of New England, so great to see them making the trip out here to Tulsa this evening and now putting themselves on the front. Catherine Rush has been great so far throughout this season, where she has been at the front many times. She has sprinted to a number of wins in her own right up in New England. Now let's see what she can do here tonight with this very stacked field. Nice single file drone shot here, Daniel. Maybe seeing more evidence of the speed that is being brought to the front. Now Denver Disruptor is coming up on the outside of the screen with that distinctive maple leaf of Leia Kirkman.
Yeah, I think you know, she's been in Europe for the last few years, moves back to America, gets stuck into the grids. She's not unfamiliar. She spent time doing these with the mixed road schedule in North America before, but she has been, you know, in Europe the last few years. So I bet she's had some adaptation to come back, get used to the rhythm. Kind of, you know, as an ever pro, she's familiar with the riders, you know, in a sense, but getting to race with them, start looking at the cues, tells on what riders are going to do. I think she's probably still figuring that out.
Potentially. I mean, also, we haven't seen her race on TV too much. We watched her in Miami at the NCL event down there, which is a super different race format. You know, now we're back to intermediate sprints more occasionally. Where she really shone in Miami was her ability to just ride really hard consistently, right? So she'd be at the front in Miami, get some sprint points, and then just stay on the gas, and very few were able to hold on. This race dynamic, completely different. We're back to what we would consider our traditional racing format, and you know, maybe she's sort of sussing out what is the potential. She put herself safely up near the front. That's a place where she can sort of control the tempo as she comes around. But now we see other NCL riders for the Miami Knights coming around, and we have a lot of sort of sustaining at the front.
Yeah, and so, you know, as you mentioned, the NCL format's quite different than this one, but as that showed, if you start racing hard from the beginning, it really starts to wear on the field much sooner than kind of this, you know, one attack every couple of laps. But this is a pretty established gap we have for the first time from a Miami Knights rider.
Andrea Butine, I believe, will be coming out. That's another distinctive ride style for her, and it looks like Emily Flynn from LA Sweat chasing from behind. Again, Emily's role as road captain tonight is to keep an eye on everybody, trying to get themselves a sprinter. Mariana Velada unable to join us here in Tulsa with some medical issues, but Andrea Butine now from Miami Knights off the front. Now let's see who she draws out in addition to, or if the rest of the field will just work it out. But Butine now off the front. We're 19 and a half minutes into our bike race. Not quite halfway, I believe. We have a little bit more bike racing to go. And taking a look at the field, looks like Emily Flynn and Leah Kirkman are at the front, just trying to bring this back. Nice ride here by Butine, Daniel. So we're about a third of the way into the event, and Butine now sort of attacking, getting a, let's call it an 8 to 10 second gap. We can count it out here. Do you think that this is going to draw people out, or do you think Butine is just sort of burning her own matches here?
I think she's hoping to draw a few riders out, get together, but it may be her role. It doesn't matter if she's burning matches, right? She's injecting pace, establishing a gap, and now her teammates can sit back and watch the wheels, read the race, saying, hey, at this point, who's chasing, who's trying to get in the breakaway, who's indifferent about this. So right now, she's just got to put her head down, find her rhythm, find her tempo, and let riders come up. And here we see Salazar making that bridge effort.
Yeah, Salazar bridging across. This is her job in the team, right? So an Olympian on Legion of Los Angeles, her role is to make sure that they are always present in any move that goes up the road. Andrea Sear is probably the protected rider for Miami, but look at this. So we got Andrea Sear, and look at that. DNA coming up and over the top, taking the outside line there. They're looking to take the race to the rest of the field. That's Harriet.
Yeah, that's really, I really like this move. Again, like we were saying earlier, win the counterattack, and she made the move before they even thought the Miami Knights rider. And you know, she was using the speed of the field, making that chase to her advantage to launch that counterattack. That's exactly how you want to do it. Now the gap's opening up. We got instant front. I think they made the move there, and they've got a rider placed towards the front, monitoring that gap. Now people just need to ride.
Yeah, look at the heads on the swivels right now. They are looking at each other. They're sussing out, is this going to stick? Now, Urelli on the right, and it looks like on the left is Alexis Ryan. Those two don't necessarily want it to succeed, and so that disruption in the rotation, even though they had the collaborative horsepower, Legion clearly showing they did not want that to succeed. Meanwhile, we are now seeing that Knights and Denver Disruptors, our two NCL teams, and DNA Pro Cycling want something to go. And here we see another counterattack by Miami Knights that kind of looks like Taylor from this far away, but look who's on her wheel. I think that's Skylar.
Yeah, really good. You know, really good heads up. Sees kind of, Skylar for sure saw that coming 2 laps before. You know, that's just how much experience. Holly Breck, same thing. Even though she's on the opposite side of the peloton, just had that feeling, you know, that something is going to happen, head on a swivel, you know, and she's on the left side, can look over to the right and say, oh, something moving, it's my time to go, and be right there.
Yeah, but Taylor Crookwhite was that rider, and Skylar Steiner. Most notably, not Skylar, excuse me, is our most recent Pan Am champion in the road race. So congratulations to her on her road to trying to qualify for Paris. She's set herself up well for that, to become an Olympian. So nice to see her here racing with us tonight for Legion in our distinctive blue kits this evening. Another new iteration of their Rafa kits where they're paying an homage to both Justin and Corey's high school in Compton. Those are their high school colors, and tonight this whole weekend they are racing as a nod to their school that they grew up in. As we come through, looking at 23.5 minutes or so to go, and on the front we see Daphne Caraganas one more time, looking over the shoulder, trying to make an assessment of what these efforts are going to mean and if they will be beneficial for her or not.
Kind of see this calm reset.
And as we see, Caraganas a little sip of the water there by Skylar. She comes around, and the DNA starting to line themselves up behind as we see the rest of the race here sort of taking not necessarily a pause, but the riders now talking on their radios as they come around, and we'll see what the next counter will be.
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, on the radios they're talking to their other teammates that are dispersed through the field, or they're getting feedback from their team directors from the side. You know, the team directors can be, you know, watching this live stream or have a different perspective to communicate to the riders on and make decisions.
And there we go. We have our riders coming through and trying to get a sense of what's happening up there on the front, as we see a few riders now on the left side of the group trying to make their way around. And LA Sweat now trying to move themselves up from midfield up over to the front. So we have ourselves a nice drone shot here with about 24, almost 25 minutes of racing elapsed time coming through.
I really love this perspective of this over the top from behind field to show the pace.
Our lead motor coming through at this time as we now see our field. A preem on the next lap. Frankie Andreu on the stage. We can hear him in our booth saying preem on the next lap, seeing if that'll shake up the moves here. Harriet Owen on the front with three of her DNA riders on her wheel, including a sprint leader, Kimberly Lucy, in the green jersey.
Yeah, it's a really good opportunity to take this, this sprint. Somebody's going to sprint for the money, and then use that opportunity to make a counterattack. And this is the perfect example. LA Sweat rider Monica in third wheel. She has a leash on her head unit. I don't know if you can see it dangling, but it's popped off. But she's got a leash, so she's still getting her data.
A good thing that she got that leash on there. Otherwise, somebody would have gotten themselves a new Wahoo for their spectating time. So we have, I believe, Harriet on the front. This is strange to me. So Harriet is traditionally known as a sprinter, but they are clearly riding for Lucy if Harriet's on the front during a sprint lap. And we're seeing DNA continue to rotate. Rachel Langdon also in there. It looks like Ashley from LA Sweat potentially putting herself up into the rotation. Or excuse me, maybe Monica putting herself into the, that is Monica Merced putting herself into the rotation for LA Sweat as well.
It doesn't surprise me to see Harriet, at this pace come to the front. She could either be placing herself, she might have found herself in a bit of a mess or uncomfortable position. The only way to get out of that is head to the front, take 5, 6, 10 pedal strokes at the front. Or, if she's just, for her fitness, like, hey, this might be too easy. Sometimes me as a sprinter just didn't like floating all the time and wanted some tension in the legs. So she could just be going to the front, putting some tension in her legs to make sure that it's still activated, for the finish of the race or when it might get really hard.
Well, we're seeing a little bit of a counterattack. I assume that this is going to be trying to get some preem. We believe that there's money on the line here. We don't think it's ACC points. It's going to be preem, and it will be a Denver Disruptor, I believe, taking that first preem. And that will be rider Leah Kirkman.
Yeah, and she, saw the opportunity really good, really large established gap. It already looks to 10 seconds. You've got one of almost every team there. A Legion rider's just coming up. Regardless if this Legion rider sits on, these three riders just need to rotate, establish the gap, and then devise a strategy, on how to shake her.
We'll see what happens with the dynamic in the field right now as we will see the field sort of regroup a little bit. Although we are seeing a little bit of daylight between four riders and the rest of the field. I just don't see the collaboration working out, though. So we got a CCB rider, you got Leah Kirkman, you got Ureli Salazar, and I believe you got a Miami Knights. Chasing from behind is going to be most likely Daphne Caraganas, number 34 for our DNA Pro Cycling.
And we can start to see some body language, the fatigue, some fatigue is setting in. Top 10 riders are strung out. There's a small gap. The pressure, see Leah's looking back. She's got to make a decision on keep the pace up, and give herself the opportunity to establish a breakaway where she can, start to race into her favor, or keep it hard enough, wear out the other team so one of her teammates can counterattack when this comes back.
A little bit of a split here as we are seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 riders right now with a few bike lanes, but again, not enough of a gap to really make a difference or write home about at the moment. As we see. But those little gaps as they start to open up and yo-yo some other riders, that'll actually have more of an effect at the back of the field. So while the midfield or mid-front third of the field won't necessarily feel too much of those effects, the back of the race is going to start to really feel the efforts here if they don't move themselves into that draft. Meanwhile, at the front right now, we have ourselves DNA Pro Cycling. One more time, nice to see this nice aggressive tactic here. They're clearly trying to disrupt any type of tactic or preset determination. A nice counter move here by Denver Disruptors on the road left of our screen as they come out. So we'll see again one more time 3 riders separating themselves. Samantha Schneider getting herself into that mix.
That's Holly Breck.
Holly Breck
putting on the pace.
Looks like one of our riders from the back of the race now getting themselves lapped out as Andrea Butine is the other rider putting themselves in the mix. And here's Denver Disruptors now making the catch and now countering immediately as they start to accelerate. This draws out Alexis Ryan, I believe, from the field. Those Denver Disruptors starting to pull out some of the key players from Legion of Los Angeles who thus far have stayed relatively hidden. Julian Aguila from Mexico also now up into the rotation. We haven't seen Julian yet this evening. Now we are in the second half of our race, and so we may see new Legion of Los Angeles riders starting to patrol, thereby showing us that. So Legion set up at the beginning of the night with Skylar and Yareli sort of patrolling at the front. Now we're in the second half of the race. Do you think that those riders are going to sort of sit back a little bit, potentially waiting for these laps to count down and get themselves to the finish?
Yeah, teams definitely set up that strategy to say, hey, you two cover the first 15, 20 minutes, you two cover the middle third, and then we're going to regroup for the final bit, and make sure you spread the workload, across the team. It's a very wise, tactic to get everybody. But it seems like, Salazar is the one rider. Hey, you're going to cover everything, the whole race.
Yep. And
then at whatever time we start the lead out, she's probably going to be one of those early riders setting the tempo.
That's Taylor Cook White one more time, our rider. Originally from Philly, now living down in the Carolinas, but we still call her a hometown Philly girl. So Taylor Cook White, again, being nice and aggressive, looking over the shoulder. Rachel Langdon, clearly that rider that has made that split, and then Yareli Salazar now there one more time. So we now have a lot more daylight. Now, Rachel Langdon, their second wheel in the pink, she loves breakaways. I've seen her at a number of races in the past where she just drives breakaways. She sweeps up creams when she is going for it. And you see her flicking that elbow. She is motivated. She wants this to go, but only Taylor Cook White is going to work. Look at that, Yareli clearly just jumping onto the wheels. Yareli's job, sit this one down, bring it back.
Yeah, and she doesn't have to bring it back. She just has to ride the wheels. And if the other two riders say, hey, we don't like this, and sit up, it's perfect for you, Salazar. If they want to keep riding, she takes the free ride. That's super frustrating. Those other two riders have to think a little bit larger than just LA Legion and continue to ride and keep the gap established. So a Denver Disruptors has to chase. A Le Sweat has to race. The other teams have to do big efforts because they're also competing against them. It's not just you're racing one team. You have to, make efforts so other teams are also wearing themselves out.
Yeah, it looked like there was a little bit of a counter move there by Legion of Los Angeles themselves. Up the right side of the road, we'll try to look at, there's a blonde ponytail in there that could have been Skylar or Sam, but let's check it. It looks like Skylar to me with that gold chain dangling down. So, and it looks like she drew out Daphne. That's right. So Daphne and Skylar have now separated themselves, and we're looking at our rider from Sinistia Cycling, trying to bring that back.
It's really good to see one of these smaller teams start to show themselves. They had a rider earlier in the pit, kept calm. Another one of their riders we saw in a couple moves early, but now it's really great to see one of these smaller teams at the halfway point start to inject themselves, into the race when things are getting tired. And we can see 5 wheels back, green jersey, Kim Lucci. It's really deceptive on TV to see what these races are, how fast they are, but she's starting to kind of wear some of the fatigue, on her face that, the pace in this, on-off pace of this race and these temperatures starting to wear on riders. And if Kim's showing it, you can best bet that a lot of the field is starting to feel the pace.
So Daniel, if you're in a race like this yourself, right, and you're seeing that the teams are proactively trying to, from my perspective, what I'm seeing as a rider of my experience, I'm seeing that the field is interested in keeping it together. We got a lot of very aggressive tactics, but there seems to be a Legion motivation to bring things back together. How do you race in that situation? Do you follow the suit here of Miami Knights and DNA and try to accelerate and create splits yourself, or are you going to float Legion in your experience?
No, I mean, when you're racing against such a well-oiled machine, you have to get them to race. You have to draw them out. And so you have to be aggressive. Just sitting around, following them around, isn't getting fatigue in their legs. You've got to find a way to get one or two of them isolated and make sure they're doing equal work, one for one. That's how you're really going to start to pick apart these teams and get fatigue going into the last 5 laps.
Okay. So Daniel, you and I had, you were such an accomplished rider. You have won this race, not in this direction, you always know. You always got the asterisk of that you didn't win in this direction. However, We got mid-race points on the line for ACC. Now, mid-race points on the line for ACC. Kimberly Lucy wearing that green jersey is on the front right now. A little too early for her to be sprinting for sprint points. So what do you think she's going to do? Is she going to try to drift back, or is she just going to let those ACC points go?
I mean, I think their tactic is, hey, the points, you know, seem to be like, if she's on the front this early, they're relatively indifferent about them. It's Kim, put the pace on. You know, we want to use this opportunity as other riders might be sprinting for points to counterattack. So help that situation, you know, help that speed ramp up into these points, and then, you know, we're going to get somebody to counterattack that.
Okay. Denver Disruptors putting themselves up near the front one more time. So an interesting dynamic right now is Lucy trying to navigate staying up near the front, but finding herself there maybe a little bit too early. Maybe Denver Disruptors will be enough of an aerodynamic break for her. And as we see the rest of DNA now coming to the front and try to set her up, it's a very challenging situation to have Lucy up there so early. Maybe didn't expect the lap count. We'll try to get some lap count on us here as well, as we now are in the mid-race preem point. We have the laps 35 minutes, but we're going to try to get some laps to go here to show us where we're at in this race. Let's see what happens here, Daniel. We are now about halfway through this lap, and DNA very clearly trying to get Kimberly Lucy to the line first. That's
really heads-up riding by Kim. Even though she's not surrounded by her teammates, she knows that points are coming. I have to be at the front. And if she's in a position, she's got to trust that her teammates are going to get there for her, and they did show up for her. So they're really good. You know, out and out, it didn't look like perfection, but Kim knew her job got there. Her other teammates knew their job got there, and now they're helping her out.
That's great to see. So we'll see if the team dynamic will get them some success here as they're coming through these turns, as we get themselves up to the finishing kick, out of the saddle. As we go, we're kicking up to the line, and it will be Lucy getting those points for the American Crit Cup.
And she had her teammates second and third to also absorb stuff, help keep that gap growing, and, you know, keep it from other teams.
And we saw 18 laps to go there on the start-finish truss, so 18 laps remaining here in the competition tonight. So we're clearly at the halfway point. It has been bell rung, points awarded, everything else. What's going to happen now here in the second half of this race? Kimberly Lucy trying to get herself away. Checking the shoulder there is Skylar Schneider. Look at this. Skylar goes right through.
Yeah, this is really good. I mean, they had one goal, let's get sprint points. And now Kim has switched, you know, mindsets. I've got my points. Now I'm all in, set up the race, make it hard, get other teams to chase. And now look what they put in their favor. They got Skylar Schneider, 2 DNA riders, other teams chasing. So DNA is really starting to swing this race in their favor of getting these other teams to race hard and get some fatigue.
Yeah, it's nice to see Skylar really committing to this split here as she gets herself 2 DNA riders into the split, Holly Breck and Kimberly Lucy. Now, Lucy looking over the shoulder right now. Looks like she's got a little bit of a gap. And you see with that drone shot, Lucy going back to the field. But this Miami Night rider may have been Butine trying to bridge herself across to the split. So we may end up with 3 anyways, even though Kimberly Lucy has dropped herself off of this move on purpose.
But she's got her teammate up there, right? So it's kind of a 1-for-1. But she was part of the setup. She got her points, created the original gap for people to get to, her teammate to bridge to, get in the draft. And even if it's a half lap, it could be so much help in that situation. And now Kim gets back in the field, drafts, sits 5-10 wheels, starts watching the race, and covers where she needs to.
Yes, then we're going to be now looking at 17 to go here for our race. 3 riders now away, a little bit of daylight between them. We could count it out, but it's going to not last very long, as we got Denver Disruptors now coming to the front very aggressively, chasing that back. And the rest of the field, you can see this field dynamic where splits are starting to occur near the back third of the race. That really shows us the overall speed and tempo of what's happening out there. Sometimes it can be hard to tell just how hard these races are when we're just watching the front sort of washing machine effect occur. The back, meanwhile, you got a lot of riders really just suffering through this at this moment.
Yeah, and if you're in that back third, those last 10 wheels, and this pace, as we can see, has kind of gone off, they're still pedaling to catch up. And as soon as they catch up, you know, an attack goes and it strings out. And so when you're at the back and you find yourself just kind of stuck there, you're always on the gas. Like, you're not getting that middle to front third recovery portions. You're just always on the pedals, and then when that gap happens and you crack, you're just out. So when you're in that position, you just kind of have to stay calm, keep your head up, and really read the race. And when you see it float at the front, you can take that opportunity to kind of come off the pedals, float as well. Okay. And even though you may not be in the draft, or they may be 10 bike lengths, kind of rest when they rest, race when they rest. That way, when you do have that moment to get in the field, you're not blown out. You can take that opportunity to advance yourself 10, 15 positions, and slowly work your way out of that massive yo-yo effect, which you're just getting hammered by.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, that sounds great. Sometimes in practice, that can be a lot harder to actually execute. I mean, I've been guilty of that myself, where I found myself thinking that I'm pulling an Adam Meyerson at the back of the field and just floating, and pretty soon I find myself yo-yoing desperately, just trying to hang on. So you got to really understand when to read the race, as Daniel just said, and understand when is the right time to sort of pull yourself up into the mid-third and then eventually up into the front third of these races.
Yeah, and if you're back there, it's difficult, but if you start panicking, you start getting that anxiety, that's going to elevate your heart rate, and you're going to have those nerves. The biggest thing is mindset back there, and say, okay, look, I'm tired, this hurts, this is fatigue, but keeping a cool head. That way, when you're in a good position, you're not overwhelmed. You're kind of building that fruition, building that moment that it's like once you get up there and you get into position, you're mentally ready for it, not just being so stressed out that when you do get to that like midfield, you're not like panicked. You're like, oh my God, I'm here, what do I do? And you miss that moment of relaxation and holding your spot. You're too much in your own head, miss the acceleration, and you find yourself off the back in that yo-yo again.
Yeah, and sometimes when you're a rider, the important layer of becoming a front elite rider in these races versus having the physical fitness to be there is having that mental relaxation, right? When you get to that moment of zen in these races where you can actually look around, where you can watch what the other riders are doing, look at body language when you're actually at speed, then you're racing. Right?
Yeah, totally. That's when you're really participating in the race. And I mean, more often than not, I think everybody would agree with me that you rarely have your best legs. You always have some sort of hiccup, some sort of barrier that you're fighting against. And it's really excelling and having that head on your shoulders. That when you're having a bad day, you're making good decisions to help you get as far along into the race as possible, and then making the most out of it with whatever your legs have on that day.
Yeah, I really appreciate that statement, because I think a lot of times athletes will come into a race and say, oh, I don't have perfect legs today, so I'm not going to do much. And it's like, well, you know what? We're here to race bikes, so let's make the most of it. Sometimes you need to have the slowest fast race possible to get yourself to the finish line, but also a lot of these athletes have tremendous amounts of depth and fitness, and to try to tap into it in the best way possible for yourself in these scenarios, because you never know what's going to happen the next time around. You take every opportunity that's presented to you, especially when you're at a national level event like Tulsa Tough.
And I've been here more often than not with not my best legs, and it's just having that mindset of ignore the body, you're prepared, and just race the race you want to race, and be mindful of taking those moments to rest. And I've had maybe the best legs I've ever had at Tulsa, and not one, because I panicked. I didn't, I was in my own head. I was like, I can't be here with this good of legs. It's not possible. And I raced way too conservative, and it ended up, not doing well, that day. And it's one race I look back and go, man, if I would have just laid it out there, I could have surprised myself, and I could have gotten the result that I really wanted. So, this sport is so mental. It's so mind games. You have to trust your training, that the bulk of what you've done leading into this will get you the result and the performance you want, regardless of what that immediate physical feedback is on that day. It's hard to separate that.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes we are our own worst enemies out there. You don't need somebody attacking you left and right and center. Sometimes the guy between your ears can be the one taking you out of the race. And let's get back to some action here on the front. You got CCB putting themselves into the wind, checking the shoulders here, and then we're seeing the riders from Legion talking to each other. The sisters, Schneider sisters, discussing some stuff, some head nods back and forth. Julien also right there as well. Good DCC coming to us from Germany here this evening, taking a sip of the water bottle. Nice to see DCC making the trip over. That is Pia Pumer, number 25 in the middle there, starting to put herself up. 16 laps to go, Daniel, at this point in time. We're now into the final third of the race. From my experience, this is the time when the riders who maybe don't like their field sprint opportunity take a bit of a gamble.
Yeah, and this is where, if you're not a field sprinter, if you're a team that doesn't have that out-and-out sprinter, is you've got to commit. It's about 15 minutes, plus or minus. This is where you just have to go, this is what's left in the race. I'm all in. Like, you got to start laying your cards on and seeing what you can push into your favor. This is where you're going to see Legion, maybe Miami Knights really start to get together and start following 4, 5, 6 riders in a row, start getting in that flow state of going, this is where we're going to be on this lap. This is what corner, we want to be on the inside here, outside there, and start working themselves, into those positions.
Just noticed the rider fiddling with the race radio in the ear. Riders are racing with radios. This is a Pro 1-2 race, so riders are permitted to have radio communication both with them, each other in the field, but also with riders or their rider sportives, domestic sportives who are on the side of the field, feeding them information and also sort of coaching them along, saying go harder, go softer, whatever.
Yeah, and it's like, as a director, it's hard to, you don't necessarily know exactly how your riders are feeling. Again, it can, even on the side of the course, it can be hard to tell what the fatigue level is. So it's a delicate balance of being that person in the ear, giving them the right info they want to hear, being motivating, reminding those riders to eat, drink, take on calories, because even though it's an hour in weather like this, you can be depleted so fast if you don't take any water from the word go to now and you haven't drank, you're pretty much hosed. So a director's kind of doing all of these things, feeding them a lot of different information and trying to do it eloquently. We've had plenty, I know I have experienced, a variety of directors and styles, and there's some where in the first 5 minutes my earpiece is out, and I'm just, I tell one of my other teammates that can tolerate, hey, if any, whatever info, relay that to me. I can't, hear 3-second gap, 5-second gap. For me, that wasn't helpful.
Sure.
You really want to just, the information you're getting over the radio is short and exactly what you need, not extra fluff. Because you're in the heat of the moment. You're raised. A lot of things are on your mind, and you just want that extra voice to be, that perfect little angel feeding you, the right information at the right time at the right lane.
Holly Breck there on the front right now. One more time, I believe, trying to check the shoulder and see what's going on. I think that's Breck, not Cummins. Yep, and Denver Disruptors also now up near the front. CCB being really pretty active. Look at that, Andrea Butin responding from the field to an Instafun and Ureli Salazar as they come around and give themselves a little bit of daylight. Butin very quick to respond. I think Miami Nights is racing for Andrea Sear tonight.
Yeah, what's really impressive is we've not mentioned her name until this point. Call-ups and Andrea's here now. And that's a big change from how she raced last year. She was ever present, always at the front, doing micro efforts. And now we've not seen her. I can't point, we haven't called her out. She's been in the wheels. She's probably got a teammate or two just shepherding around. If there's a gap open, it's not her business to close it. She's got somebody, right there for it. And, we saw her do a lot of work last year and just edging on the podiums, being close. So maybe, with her learning more patience, that we might see something different. But she's kind of midfield, right there behind Kim Lucci in the green jersey. She's
okay.
Andrea Sears, red jersey, white glasses.
Okay, yeah. Good eye there, Daniel. Yeah, so oftentimes it's the riders we never talk about who end up finding the most success. In fact, we're looking at the back here. We see Harriet Owen for DNA Pro Cycling just chilling at the back right now, looking very comfortable, trying to take as few pedal strokes as possible each lap to get herself around towards the finish.
Yeah, and a rider like Harriet, kind of these, they're just floating around the peloton. You can, as a sprinter, leave gaps and see, well, if I take this line and I do this on this corner, where does that put me? If I do this here, where does that put me? Because you never know if you just may end up isolated. You need to know how to navigate, by yourself through certain corners or through a field. So it's something I certainly used to do, is just test, certain lines, certain corners. That way, when the heat is on, you've kind of had, experience inside, middle, outside lane, at every corner.
I think, you're starting to talk about lanes and corners and whatnot. So at this point in the race, the athletes really should start to understand where their final sort of setups are going to be, right? Like which lines they want to hit. In your experience, so I know we've got a little bit more pedal strokes this year between some of the turns, but just set us up before we get into the final 10 here, Daniel, with where do you want to be and maybe at each of these turns? Inside line, outside line, or is it changing?
It changes a bit. I favored, being on the left side, the outside on the home stretch. And so that's outside corner 1, inside corner 2. outside, outside, but it sets you up to be inside in corner 6 going into 7-8. So through corner 6, you're on the inside. That's kind of a controlling position. So, you take some work, you take some extra distance early in the lap, but you're setting yourself up for the finale to go into the backstretch, inside and in a controlling position, ideally.
Okay. I love to see that. That was Amy Gamelgard from Fount Cycling Guild out of Oklahoma. So Amy Gamelgard, hopefully a local rider, getting herself on the front of her hometown big race here today in that green. According to our start sheet, she has no teammates. So hopefully she is getting herself some good airtime here, and Butcher Box now coming to the front. So Daniel, when you're talking about these race courses in that way, it just shows the analysis that goes into your approach to these races. And I think a lot of times riders don't necessarily even comprehend some of that. Sometimes they're really just looking at the hub in front of them as they go through each of these turns.
Yeah, totally. And so, it's putting trust in others that, they're making good decisions. And, over time, you learn to pick your head up from that hub in front of you to their front hub to the hub in front of them. It's, learn to just ride with your head up and let, there was for me, there was always this kind of 10 to 12 foot bubble that was in soft focus. I could see it move around me, but none of it was sharp. But I could see it move and float. But my focus and everything was sharp was 15, 20 feet ahead of me, or further, depending on how far back I was. So that's what you got to really learn to develop and trust, that you can kind of build out that soft focus bubble from just kind of the butt in front of you to more and more space.
Wow.
So you can start to see things develop.
Okay.
You can start to see, holes open. Imagine driving in moderate traffic on the freeway. If you've got your head up, you can kind of see where lanes are, things are opening, or, things slowing down that you might be able to get ahead of that slowdown. If you've seen it, 500 yards up the road, you can just change lanes and not have to brake. It's very similar in a bike race.
Very cool. I love to hear it. So we have Melanie Wong on the front of the race right now for Butcher Box. Butcher Box here tonight with Caitlin Agnew, Melanie Wong, Mackenzie Malt, Rachel Canning, and Christina Goki-Smith guest riding for them this evening. So we'll try to see what their plan will become here as we get into the final. Looks like 11 on the screen. Laps to go here. 10 laps now to go for our.
And we can see just over the right side of this banner on our screen, there was a flag. It's still windy. It's still headwind, down the home stretch.
Okay.
With an uphill. That's super tricky. Your timing has to be really good. And if, viewers now were watching the earlier race, the men's race, a rider had a very large gap. Going into the last lap, going into the last half lap, even though he had tailwind going into the final 2 corners and into the home stretch, with fatigue, he hit the home stretch with a headwind, slight uphill into a steeper uphill kick, and 12 seconds evaporated very, very fast.
Yeah, well, you and I took a good look at the start-finish shoot this morning, and pretty much when you come out of the final turn 8, it's about a 2%, 1 to 2% lift, and then you flatten out at the cross street, and then at 50 meters to go to the line, it kicks to about 3 to 4-ish%, and that is where that race really turned on its head. So the Cat 1-2 race coming down to the final 50 meters, even though you had a rider off the front with a 12-second advantage in that contest, we could see sprints changing quickly, even if we come down to a field sprint situation here tonight, just due to the headwind compounded by the increase in that final 50 meters of elevation.
Yeah, so when a team is doing a lead out, that's very, very much in the forefront of their mind going into 1 to go, that they have to be very detailed in their acceleration from the last corner to the first corner. They can't accelerate too early and give teams from behind that opportunity to swarm them as they get, just past the finish line, at the slowest part, of the course. They've got to keep the gas on, so it's ever difficult for people to come over the top from behind. A couple years ago, Summerhill and I timed it to perfection. We went over the top through corner 1 for a second, and Danny had great legs. I fell apart completely, full meltdown, and we came away with nothing. But our initial execution was perfect, but the rest of it was not. So the tricky part of that is they've added an extra block. 3 corner 3 is a block further than it's been, and between 4 and 5 is an extended block. So previous years, if you kind of got into corner 2, you could coast corner 2, 5, 6 pedal strokes into corner 3, have a really long float, 2, 3 pedal strokes into 4, float, basically get all the way to corner 6, not expended much energy, as a lead out rider.
Okay.
Now that that's extended, coming out of corner 2, you have a really long straightaway. There's no float. You got to come out of that and start accelerating all the way into 3. And then you do have that chance to float between 3 and 4, but coming out of 4, there's, you've got to, it's a long acceleration into 5, a little bit of respite into 6, but then another big acceleration into the final 2 corners. That's nothing these teams have experienced before on this particular course. So we're just going to see, those that are experienced can adapt, have really looked at this course, execute that, or we may see people get it wrong, and there might be, some really big changes on the last lap of these 2 extended back stretches.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that even the experienced teams are racing a new course tonight. The timing is going to be different. The pedal stroke count is going to be different. The sprint lengths may be slightly shifted just as far as the effort that's going to go into actually getting themselves to that setup. Sounds like there's going to be a little bit of a preem. So we go listen to Frankie on the stage, so that preems here within single digits of the race are also going to affect the overall. Now DNA coming to the front with 4 riders. Much too early for a lead out. What are they thinking right now?
It's only a lead out if they start accelerating the pace. They could just be 4 riders getting to the front, riding their teammate, their tempo to organize. But if you've got 4 riders at the front, it's going to be a lot easier for Kim Lucci to just kind of pop around and catch a wheel. And then 2 can become 4, can become 6 really fast. So just because they're at the front doesn't mean they've increased the tempo, increased the pace to be, too far forward too early. It's about staying, you're at the front, it's close to finish, but it's keeping your composure and not doing too much too early.
Well, I stand corrected. Actually, it's at 8 laps to go. There are sprint points for ACC on the line coming up on the set when they cross at 7 to go, and so for that reason, that is why DNA is now on the front. They are, in fact, doing a bit of a wind-up for Kimberly Lucy. She's wearing that green jersey. She's last wheel for them right now, but I think this is going to be an interesting preview for the final kick to the line with this team. So let's look at our order here. It looks like
Holly Breck
is Rachel,
Daphne,
okay, Liv Cumming, and then Lucy.
Kim Lucci, and then, Harriet Owen is not there. She's further back. But I'm sure that's just, they've communicated that, hey, Harriet may not say, I don't want to be at the back of the train that early. I'm going to float. You guys do their job. And this is where you just have that communication and trust. Okay. These girls are up there working. And if it's for Harriet, they have to trust that Harriet's going to do her job. And Harriet has to go, they're going to do their job. So we may not be seeing what, quote, is perfection of 6 riders in front at once. It could just be like, as a sprinter, you have your style, you have what you want. If you can communicate that and the team can execute that strategy, it almost sometimes doesn't matter what it looks like to us on the outside.
Here we come out of that final turn here. We'll see if that green jersey gets herself across the finish line here first to get herself maximum ACC points. We'll also see if any other DNA riders soak up the additional points behind. Lucy gets maximum points. DNA coming across there for second. Miami Knights, it looks like they, with Andrea Butine, getting 3rd points there in that intermediate sprint, but she is now driving here. She comes past us here in the booth as she dives onto the back 3rd of the course, so she's driving that pace. Foreshortening here of the lens doesn't quite show the string out, but you see the action there by Urelli of sipping from the bottle. Maybe that shows us what's happening here, but look at this, Daniel. Legion coming to the front, responding quickly to the efforts there by Miami Knights.
Yeah, and that was just like a 1-2, Butini at the front, and now her teammate counterattacking, and just love to hopefully see, for the next 5-6 laps, they just keep countering. Look, it's starting to really string out. If they were to keep this pace for the next 2, we could see some exciting racing and a dynamic we haven't necessarily seen before.
Yeah, I mean, now, so we're 7 laps to go now. Is this going to be the Legion windup?
Yeah, I mean, look, they're starting to put it together, be in position. Again, just like DNA a couple laps before, they were getting Kim some points, but they're at the front just being together.
Yep.
they're communicating, hey, this is the pace we need to ride. And they've got the experience of, looking down potentially at their computer and going, we know if we just ride this pace, we don't get too much action, right? This is fast enough to keep things at bay, but slow enough where it's not too taxing on us at the moment.
Yeah, we were talking earlier this week about that moment of understanding bike races where the riders who are relaxed and mentally present in the race, they've been paying attention at every lap leading into this moment. They've been looking at their computers. They're like, okay, we've been averaging 38 Ks an hour. We're going to ride 39 K an hour now just to keep this thing in check. If we need to lift to 40, 41, we'll start to get there if we need to. But it's a very specific type of disciplined riding at the front right now. You're hearing the preem bell being rung for $300, I hear. But look at this, Legion is just riding discipline. They lift the speed up a little bit as DNA came up on the hip. Legion accelerated, but not out of the saddle. It's a seated acceleration.
Yeah, and this is where, some of these other smaller teams can't get too excited and say, we got to take the front and, give Legion the draft. But they also can't just tuck in behind Legion and let them choose the pace. They've got to now start to ride next to the train and be shoulder to shoulder from second wheel, all the way back and ride train to train. That way when Legion looks over, they go, a team is right here. And if they don't want them there, Legion has to pick up the pace. And the sooner you just match that, you start going one for one. Daphne's at the front ride next to Alexis Ryan. They're now doing effort for effort if, Alexis doesn't want him to pass. If they're just sitting on the wheel now, Alexis can pick her pace.
Okay.
She can coast longer. She doesn't have to pedal as hard for as long. But if you place your train next to them, now Alexis has to match that speed. And if they don't want to get taken over, they have to match. And if you're at the same level, it's going to be one for one. You're going to do 2 laps virtually, at the same time. You're going to be burning the same energy. So just because you're behind, you're resting, but Legion's also resting. This team in control is also not doing that much work.
Okay.
So you have to start to ride next to the train and just kind of egg them on, and just match their pace, and get them to go from further out longer than they want to, and really start to get your sprinters isolated one-on-one, towards, the last 300-400 meters of this race. And not let Legion get to the final corner with 4 riders.
Yeah, Rachel Langdon going to take that preem there, and I believe we're now at 5 to go in this race. Like Rachel Langdon from DNA Pro Cycling, out of northern Great Britain, as she would clarify, that she is now coming out and around and going to try to insert herself back into the mix. That's an interesting decision there by DNA to actually go for the preem, as we are getting a lot of wind kicking up here.
The wind
where
is
we
really
are
starting to come up.
So how is the wind going to really affect our final kick here, Daniel?
Yeah, again, it's a headwind sprint that's uphill, but you do have 2, long back straightaways that are going to be tailwinds. You're going to get tailwind, a right-left corner into a tailwind, into a right-right, into a headwind finish. So, the tailwind can, potentially encourage people to go too early, right? You're like, I'm going fast, let's go. But it's, earlier. So with the tailwind, you've got to instill the discipline and still hit your marks, where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, and we're also now seeing the dynamic further back in the field where the riders are really single file. They're really trying to hang on, stay focused, but that red jersey of Andrea Sear now coming to the front. Andrea wearing the red leaders jersey for the ACC. So you not only have Friday night at Blue Dome, the McNally's Group Blue Dome race occurring here, you also have the next stop of the American Criterium Cup occurring, and Andrea Sear is your leader of that, wearing the red jersey. First time we've really talked about her, as we were talking about earlier in the broadcast. It's the riders we don't talk about who get us the most interesting. Let's see, are they ringing another preem bell?
That sounds like another preem lap. DNA has reorganized, got their team towards the front.
Look at this, the back of the field is just shattering right now. This pace is really lifting. I'll tell you what, Kendall Ryan looks really comfortable to me, Daniel. She is sitting in her national championship jersey at the back of the train. There are riders up on her hip really fighting her for that Legion train, but she is not letting anything go. Hopefully we don't get blown into the course here as we are sitting on right outside of turn number 1. The wind is really picking up right now. I think that this is going to cause a little bit of a shift in the sprint timing. So those riders who are out here right now who have really thought about, okay, I know my timing, I know when and where I'm going to jump, that timing may get shifted slightly, especially if that shift becomes more of a tailwind. I'm looking at flags again, and what do you see? I see tailwind on the start-finish straight. I feel it at my back.
Yeah, the wind has definitely switched as this storm is starting to come from the last corner. If we get that expanded shot from corner 1 to the last corner, we're going to see the sky is starting to get ominous. It's getting dark gray. The wind has switched as this storm has come. So that dynamic's different. Now we have a tailwind uphill, but guess what? Now we have 2 long back straightaways with a headwind.
Okay.
So now you really have to be sure you don't go too early to, run out of legs and get swarmed, on the backstretch going into those corners.
An added dynamic, there's a bit of construction just before where the riders just came through, and there's just a cloud of sand just being blown into the course, into their faces right now. And so that's going to add a little bit of extra dynamic to this whole thing as we come into the final 3 laps of our race. 3 laps to go right now, and the wind is really picking up. This storm is coming.
Yeah, we can see the sky in the background starting to get dark.
Yeah, storm is coming both on course and in the skies as we wind ourselves up. Legion is getting themselves to the finish line as quickly as possible here as the wind picks up, and other teams are going to try to figure it out. We've got DNA Pro Cycling, Miami Knights trying to get themselves. Denver Disruptors a little bit more disorganized from behind. Flags are up. I'm not sure. I don't see any downed riders, but our course marshal's raising a red flag as the riders come by. Ureli Salazar on the front right now. Again, a 2020 Olympian for Mexico. She's also won herself a number of races on the track. So Salazar now winding it up for Legion of Los Angeles. The rest of the teams, this is the time to decide, right, Daniel? Whether you're going to come up and around or if you're going to just let Legion do the work.
This is where you have to just let them ride. They're starting to really accelerate the pace. Don't go up there and help them. But you want to ride the hip. You want to make sure that when they look over, that people are there and they can't take any rest. This is where, as a team, you really want to be trying to ride, next to them. It doesn't matter if you're riding, next to Kendall or next to Sam in front of her. You want to be there, ever present on the side of them. So Kendall's yelling up the train, hey, up, 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 faster, 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 and get these Legion riders to take longer, harder pulls sooner than they want to.
This is amazing to see. Ureli is really digging it. When you see Ureli digging it, is that Skylar?
Skylar's showing up front a little sooner than we would anticipate. But who knows? The communication, she may not be riding as well as her sister, riding as well as Kendall, and that's the fluidity they have of their team to be able to communicate and lay these plans out. And their talent is so deep that they're able to swip and swap. You're not always relying on Kendall and Skylar to be the finishes at every race.
I mean, I think that Skylar has won this race before. The Legion of Los Angeles, a very tight family on the bike. 2 laps to go now. 2 laps remaining in this bike race. Legion of Los Angeles now setting up Kendall Ryan now last wheel, and she is looking for that win. Now Sam is right in front. Samantha Snyder is right in front of Kendall. So perhaps Kendall is the sweeper wheel for Sam, who has won this race in the past, but Samantha now a young mom and a baker with her sister. Perhaps they are still trying to set up Kendall wearing these Stars and Stripes.
And you can see that it's just really starting to come apart about 15, 20 wheels back.
Oh.
See, there's a gap, to that might be Rachel Langdon, into a couple other girls. And there's 5 or 6 into 5 or 6 into 5 or 6. And now we see, La Sweat Rider and somebody else,
these
feeling
riders,
the pace.
They look like their shifters are banged up. Looks like they may have gone down. These riders are not the front of the field. We're going to try to get our eyes on where their front is, and there it is. You got yourselves the Schneiders, Ureli, and Alexis Ryan up at the front, coming by the sand right now. What do you see, Daniel?
And that's 10, 12 riders in that front split, and then a few bike lengths, 5 riders, a few bike lengths, a few, so
wow.
If you've missed that, Leah Kirkman, missed that. She's doing a really big effort with 2 to go. It's really not ideal for herself or to be able to get up there and help Andrea, move up that train and place herself well.
Yeah, I think I see Stephanie Hollimack in there as well, but this is looking really good, really promising for our final lap as we're going to be coming into 1 lap to go here as we are looking at our Legion of Los Angeles train winding it up. 1 lap to go here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. McNally's group Blue Dome event Friday night here in Tulsa. The excitement is full gas. Daniel, you are looking excited. What are you seeing?
Yeah, it's super deep. It's, these gaps, they can happen so quick that if you're not there to be there, you've missed it. But look, Holly Breck right on the back of the train. Really good position on Kendall Ryan. Andrea's here 2 wheels back from that.
These splits are massive right now. Skylar Schneider gritting her teeth.
Oh, that's not Holly Breck.
Who is it? And then we got is that Liv?
That is Liv.
Yeah, nice.
Coming from the Lux development
team.
Young
rider from the Velodrome coming up to the front. She was on Lux Cycling just last year. This is her first year on DNA. She's a very good sprinter, but very young, unknown quantity. Rider number 1 is Skylar Schneider. She is gritting her teeth. Pan Am champion right now on the front of this race. Alexis Ryan, winner in Athens, is second wheel right now. They are clearly working for Kendall at the moment. I believe that Sam Schneider with the green glasses as they set themselves up to come into the final few turns. Daniel, this is pivotal. This is it.
Yep. We're going to see probably Skylar in her turn right out of here and Alexis Ryan come and just do a full sprint into the final 2 corners. Here we go.
There it is. Alexis now taking over with Sam right behind. Now, this is crucial with wind and the uphill sprint. Have they set themselves up too early? Alexis desperately trying to smash those pedals to get themselves to the front. And Samantha sitting there in second wheel. It's 1 turn to go, Daniel, and there's the kick. Whoa! Kendall taking him to the fence right now, shutting the door. Kendall wants this win. Kendall now re-accelerates, but it's very early. As we've seen in other races, this is an uphill kick. Kendall Ryan with the head down as she comes to the line. Kendall Ryan, ladies and gentlemen, takes the win here tonight.
Yeah, that was, Legion, with the change of wind, the extended course, nailed their lead out, for Skylar to do such a big pull, drop Alexis off on that backstretch, and kind of made it so, Kendall can make that decision of when to go.
So we're going to see if that was an amazing, their final corner moment. Did she shut the door there on Olivia Cummings?
She did. Liz, went to go inside there. Kendall felt it and just, did the early apex.
Yeah, amazing to see what was going on there. The camera angle is tough. Catherine Sarkisov there in the background with the orange shoulders. Just a note there, she's a very young athlete, under 20 years old at the front of this field. Here we come, Kendall Ryan to the finish line, setting up, celebrating early, slapping the just saying, I am Legion of Los Angeles. I am the national champion here at Blue Dome, taking the win tonight. And one more time, a little further out from a different camera angle. Olivia Cummings, great ride though there by that DNA Pro Cycling rider. Great to see her get herself so far up in these races at this level. Kendall takes the win. Samantha Schneider behind. Great racing here tonight, Daniel, where we saw Legion really setting the tempo, setting the scene early on, right?
Yeah, when they come to the front the first 3 laps and say, look, we're all 6 of us here, do something about it. That could be, people can see that as like, oh man, they're really here. We might have to readjust. We might have to think of something different. So they set the tone, kind of put the ball on the rest of the peloton and say, hey, you want to race? Let's race. And then the other teams have to kind of make that decision from there on how aggressive they want to be, the tactics they want to develop around that.
We're going to get ourselves situated here. Kendall is going to come around. We'll hopefully get some words with her and maybe even some others from the field as we see ourselves set up here for welcoming our champions to the podium here. I'm going to take some words here. Ureli Salazar, maybe Julian actually. There right now, getting a little camera time. But here comes Kendall with her cool down lap. Finishing up. This is Friday night here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. This is the McNelly's Group Blue Dome race in downtown Tulsa, Oklahoma. This is night 1 of the infamous Tulsa Tough. I'm Gabe Lloyd. I've been joined by Daniel Holloway here. Of course, we have the men's professional race coming up next. Don't go anywhere. Give yourself a little snack if you're listening at home, and then be sure to come on back and tune in for the final race of the night here this evening. Yeah, Kendall getting herself the introduction there at the start finish. Nice little, there it is. Kendall getting herself the introduction. Julian, we love that. Hugging her in. Kendall gonna talk to Rasam. Nice to have Samahati on stage
cyclist
here
the
with
U.S.
us
has
this
ever
year.
seen. I've known her since she was a pup. I can say that. And you've done everything. Olympic hopeful. This coming up next Olympics on the track. Multi-time national champion. You've raced all across the world, but you come back to Tulsa and absolute smash the first day here. Take us through the last lap.
Man, my team was amazing today. They just took charge and didn't let anything faze them. So I just want to thank my team first. Then I want to thank Tulsa for coming out and cheering so loud. It was so loud we could barely hear each other talk in the race. And yeah, like we were actually here sprinting for Sam. And it was just like we got shuffled in the end, and DNA came up on the inside and I just had to go. So yeah, it was just a super fast lap. It got really windy on the backside. And yeah, it was just pure grit today. I'm just super proud of my team for coming through.
Yeah, speaking of the last corner here, I saw DNA take the inside, but it also speaks to your experience. Can you talk a little bit about just that quick move that you had to make a quick decision to make sure that you didn't get jumped on the inside?
I mean, it just comes with time on the bike and racing, and you have to have that pack awareness and what's going on around you and keep your head on a swivel. And I just saw her out of the corner of my eye. The spidey senses were tingling, and I just had to go. So we have a plan going in, but sometimes it doesn't work out perfectly. And but yeah, we still have to make sure we win on the day. Also, happy birthday to our Swan Year Turbo. The win was for you.
Last thing before I let you go and celebrate. You have a lot of good riders on your team. Frankie and I talked about during the race, your kit stands out. You're the national champion. We didn't talk about you the entire race. Was that the plan, to just sit back and hide and wait for the finish?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're just trying to keep people guessing on who we were gonna race for. Just keep it interesting. I think everyone didn't really know what we were doing because Skylar won last year. So, yeah, just trying to keep the race fun and racing forward.
Well, it's always a pleasure to watch you race. Congratulations. Give it up for Legion of Los Angeles, Kendall Ryan.
What an incredible job. The blue jerseys representing Crenshaw taking the win. Now we have up next our pro men. Like to be able to call our pro men to the line, pro men to staging. Pro men, come on out to the course. Pro men to the line, please. Pro men to the line. Let them out to the staging area, please. Let's go. Thank you, Peter. Gentlemen, stop at the staging area. Stop at the staging area. Thank you very much. first place in the Athens Twilight Criterium, just coming back from a break from competition, but he's
Check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
All those mics are off. The only mic on is these two right here.
He is your leader.
Check. 1, 2, 3.